2 university students injured after clashing with locals. Governor Naru urges the government to come clean on state of economy. And St. John's ambulance service ceases due to lack of funds.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Wednesday's news. 2 students have been injured in a recent violence following the boycott at the University of Natural Resources and Environment this afternoon. It's understood a commotion between locals and students resulted in the attack of the 2 students at Caravat Town. Student leaders say opportunists are taking advantage of the prolonged boycott and are stirring up violence.
The prolonged boycott at the University of Natural Resources and Environment had resulted in 2 students injured and hospitalized. One student received stab wounds to his head, while the other was severely beaten.
We don't know who has caused this. 2 of our students are severely injured and they are admitting in the hospital now.
It's understood an altercation between students and locals last night has resulted to a revenge attack on the 2 students at the Caravat Township this afternoon.
All the students are under control and we haven't caused any violence. But people are taking advantage of the situation and cause some of the disruptions.
I have received reports.
The East New Britain Police boss yesterday sounded a warning to students not to stage any violent boycott within the campus.
You have your rights to protest against certain issues, but do not resort to violence.
The boycott is now dragged into its 6th day as students await an answer from the administration over an increase in tuition fees by 60%. On Monday, the students protested and demanded the removal of the university's bursa and called for immediate intervention from the Office of Higher Education. The Higher Education Minister yesterday said the matter is an internal issue and should be handled by the university's administration. A delegate from the Office of Higher Education is expected to attend to the boycott tomorrow to talk to the students and the administration. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
Morobe Governor Kelly Naru says the provincial government has received only 3 million kina of the 45 million kina PSI funding from the national government. As a result, PSIP-funded projects directly impacting rural parts of Morobe will come to a halt. Governor Naru called on the national government to come clear on the state of the country's economy. EMTV's Bethany Harriman has this report.
The Morobe provincial government has been working based on a PSIP allocation of 3 million kina. That's how much money received from the national government this year from the 45 million kina budget. Much of the provincial government's service delivery projects hinges on the PSIP funding.
We are into September now, and for the record, we have only got 3 million kina from the 45 million kina promised from the national government. And what do you do with 3 million on the ground? I can't move some of these programs because the money is not forthcoming.
Morobe Governor Kelly Naru says the rural Medivac program with Manolos Aviation and projects supporting basic health and education are slowly coming to a halt.
But it's no good the government keep saying that all is good and all is well when the reality on the ground is reflects the contrary position.
He now wants the national government to come clean with the state of the country's economy. Economic analysts say that the country is facing an economic crisis, but the national government has been playing it down, saying the country's economy is stable. One of the most important PSIP-funded projects is the Mama's Medivac program, where pregnant mothers are medevaced out of rural parts of Morobe to deliver their babies in Lae. Now, the Morobe Governor Kelly Naru has called on the national government to come out clear about the state of Papua New Guinea's economy so that a revised budget can be allocated for Morobe and other provinces around the country. Morobe's dry spell hitting rural parts is also provincial government resources. Morobe is one of the country's biggest provinces, with 9 rural districts scattered throughout the mountains and the coast. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Lae.
The Madang Provincial Disaster Office has responded to questions raised by representatives of Manam Islanders and the Bogia people. The Islanders representative, speaking to EMTV News in Madang today, said they need clarification as to how monies sent for their relief supplies are used.
The Manam Islanders said they want to know how the 250,000 kina from the Prime Minister and the 50,000 kina from the National Disaster Office has been used.
2010 NEC decision, 10 million, 15 million kina. NEC give him long people from Manam, the work plus shelter. Now look out in people from Manam. 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 3.5 million. Total of 14 million. Subtotal. Total of 29 million. Now 2015. Mina look at Manam people by got problem. Suppose this money, meaning government put him the straight road to look at people from Manam.
In response, the Madang Provincial Government's Disaster Coordinator, Rodolph Mongali, says of the 250,000 kina from the Prime Minister, of rice, flour, 62 bags of rice, flour and cooking oil to the islanders, 67,350 kina remains. Mr. Mongali says this remaining money has been set aside, awaiting more funding assistance before relief operations for this and next month can continue. He says the 50,000 kina received from the National Disaster Office was all spent on logistics. Meanwhile, the Bogia people are again calling on the national government to come down to their level and discuss the Manam Restoration Bill before it passes the bill next month.
One time Prime Minister people look at MPC man or country. One time me get, one time me free. Now me come me blab must rule except the Prime Minister because me blab look forward to this day. October me come close to now.
Rachel Shise, National EMTV News, Madang.
There are more calls from local business owners in the country for an investigation into the Department of Labour and Industrial Relations. Their calls relate to the issuance of work permits to foreigners under suspicious circumstances. In recent weeks, several Chinese operating in the Gulf province have been arrested for illegally operating businesses without proper documents. It is alleged that someone high in the Department of Labour and Industrial Relations is facilitating this illegal process. Police are currently conducting investigations to verify where the documents came from. Attempts to verify this with the Department of Labour and Industrial Relations were unsuccessful. Cases against police officers that were not being investigated can now be probed by the Ombudsman Commission. Police internal investigators sometimes feel discomfort or threatened when investigating their superiors or their workmates. In those situations, the Ombudsman will now take over and oversee the allegations.
Allegations reported against police officers are sometimes not investigated. Often cases reported against is either dropped or is workmates turning a blind eye to it. In recent times, cases of police brutality have topped the list of stories in the media. However, sometimes the complaints laid against the officer at the Internal Investigation Unit take longer to be investigated. Sometimes internal investigators feel threatened by the hierarchy or feel discomfort investigating and charging the workmates. In such situation, the registered complaint will be forwarded to the Ombudsman Commission to oversee it. In a media conference today, Police Commissioner Gary Bucky and Acting Chief Ombudsman Phoebe Sangetari signed a memorandum of agreement enabling the reintroduction of this oversight program.
To see that there is an independent investigating team that is put together to look into the behavior of our men and women, so that when the final outcome comes, it gives us us a report that is not biased.
Bucky was the first commissioner to introduce this program after the 2004 police review report. His successors have failed to continue the program until today. The oversight program will help restore confidence in the constabulary, improve officers' ethics, and decrease police brutality.
This program, the police oversight program, is one of those programs where we are coming in as an oversight agency to help you do your work in terms of investigating complaints about yourselves and appropriately dealing with them.
A similar program is also undertaken by the PNG Defence Force, and the Ombudsman is planning to include the Correctional Service as well. Quinten Alomp, National EMTV News.
Among stories coming up after the break, Bougainvillians mark International Day of the Disappeared, and St. John Ambulance ceases operations due to lack of funds. Stay with us for those stories and more. Good to have you back with the news. The people of the autonomous region of Bougainville have drawn up a missing persons policy to be handed over to their government and hopefully will be adopted by the national government. The policy helps to identify missing persons of the Bougainville crisis and to begin the process of locating their whereabouts and eventually accord them proper burials. On August 30th, families of the missing persons marked the International Day of the Disappeared to remember their loved ones. MTV's Fabian Hakelitz with tonight's MTV News special report.
International Day of the Disappeared ended on a high note on Monday this week, with the missing persons policy completed, a way forward for both the national and autonomous Bougainville governments to strengthen peace and reconciliation and easing grief-burdened families who lost their loved ones during the civil war on the island, a pathway to enable solutions to grieving families to repatriate the remains of their loved ones. Families of the missing persons hosted ceremonies in Arawa and Buka with the theme Still in Darkness and Waiting. On Sunday, families underwent rituals fulfilling customary obligation.
It signifies that these people have some kind of high status in Bougainville, like in being chiefs. Or
it started with the hearts, a sacrifice of thanksgiving to God the Creator and the dead. In-laws then wore the traditional umbrella called Tohu, sign of respect.
And I hope that one day Bougainville, I know it is free, but I also believe that I would not like to see war in Bougainville again. 23 years has passed and we're still searching for our lost ones.
Bougainville Regional MP Joe Lera said Bougainville's aspiration of achieving full peace and reconciliation is the identification of the missing persons.
I would all this plan no start no peace, all by affecting ni plan leaders, all government, all kita kain work you making. I mean, no now come up straight.
Dawn service on Monday was inspiring with a traditional chants, followed with a sea burial for those who were lost at sea. Life every day is heartbreaking, but full of hope, guided by Christian faith. But where they are remains a question, whether buried on land or sea. What families want is for the remains of their loved ones to be returned and for a decent burial be accorded. They are still in darkness and waiting to forgive.
Bapla accepting tasol talk sorry blong misa tibin kilim ol brata blomi na long me too bami mino ting bami lusting ting long all geta.
if the government on the ground, like autonomous region, should give recognition to those people who died in the crisis, because these are the ones they built this government on the ground. Without them, we won't have these autonomous regions on the ground, because they are the heroes on our hero side. We should respect them.
Where are you now? Where are you now? Now I am appealing to the COE government, the ABT government, the national government to help us with our problems, looking for our beloved ones. Where are they now? Sue and mend our broken-hearted hearts. We are still in darkness and waiting for our beloved ones to come home.
Mi play maskisim body blong. Legore na mi play kam plan mi mem long. Ha blong mama blong mi play. We can come rest na mi play too.
Bougainville President-Chief Dr. John Momis told EMTV News the missing persons policy will assist both governments with a proactive approach implementing it for Bougainville's prosperity.
The government will find funds to build a appropriate monument to remember the missing persons.
Both the national and autonomous Bougainville governments have commended the International Committee of Red Cross for leading the way. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Several areas of the northern province are facing food shortages caused by El Nino. Random assessments by the Provincial Disaster Centre have found that grassland areas of the province are the worst affected. Riverbeds have dried up and food gardens affected, leaving many people struggling to survive. The Provincial Disaster Team is working closely with the local level government to assist the people deal with the onset of the El Nino. A report will be finalised and presented to the National Disaster Office for funding support. St. John Ambulance Services will temporarily cease all of its operations starting tomorrow. St. John's Chief Commissioner Andrew Kalai told EMTV News prolonged delays in the approval of an MOU with the Department of Health and no support and funding has resulted in this decision. Commissioner Kalai says all emergency cases will now, regrettably, go unattended.
St. John Ambulance has been attending to emergency calls and patient transfer for the last 58 years in the country. Tomorrow will see all its services temporarily stop. In an interview with St. John's Chief Commissioner Andrew Kalai, he spoke of the financial challenges St. John faces.
Since the beginning of this year, we have been having funding difficulties. Temporarily cease operations until funding is brought in.
The delay in an approval of a MOU has also burdened St. John's operations. Mr. Kalai says the government has responded to the budget but has come short to support all its operations.
We have been operating at less than 50% of what we budgeted to get. Though we have received less than half the money that we budgeted for, we have continued to provide the services that we are tasked to provide.
St. John responds to over 300 emergency calls a day in Port Moresby. Mr. Kalai says the public will now seek these services through other means.
Whether that other means a taxi, PMV, or a private vehicle is for everybody to decide. What St. John does is carry out a lot of functions that are normally carried out by state ambulance services in other Commonwealth countries.
Adding on to these problems, fuel shortage has also hit hard on the organization. Jack Lepave Jr., National EMTV News.
The 51st Medical Symposium ended on a high note today here in Port Moresby. Hundreds of doctors, medical practitioners and stakeholders attended the symposium, which started on Sunday. With the theme, Advancing Women's Health Through Innovation, much focus was on the strategic approaches to improving health systems, especially women's health.
The 51st Medical Symposium was hosted by the PNG Women Doctors Association on behalf of the Medical Society of PNG. In her welcome remarks, Dr. Linda Sirigoy, president of the PNG Women's Doctors Association, said the association recognized the significant progress over the past decade that has been made to address women's health issues. However, given the current statistics and reports, women's health issues still need to be prioritized. Presentations covered all areas from women's cancers to rural health and many others. Professor Michael Pamazel from the Royal Australia and New Zealand College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists talked about the importance of continuing professional development. This is to ensure registered doctors remain fit to practice and maintain the public's trust in the medical profession. The symposium also included presentations from other specialists. One of the guest speakers at today's symposium was Dr. Eric Kwa from the Constitutional Law Reform Committee. His presentation on the proposed Women's Health Protection Bill was of significant interest. Dr. Kwa urged those in the medical profession to encourage the proposed bill into becoming a law.
Because for us, a law must follow policy. You don't just create law out of the vacuum, because then it makes no sense. And so based on the law reform program that we have in our procedure, we need to look at existing statistics, evidence, and of course, government policies.
Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
8 Mile settlement in Port Moresby has been surviving on illegal water connections for over 2 decades. One of the fastest growing settlements in the city is without basic services like health and education centres. The community has organised into groups to address this issue by working with the Office of the Member for Moresby North East.
For years, the population here at 8 Mile in the nation's capital have been struggling daily. Access to clean drinking water is an ongoing concern.
This pipe is the lifeline of more than 20,000 people living here at 8 Mile settlement.
These smaller connections are the work of individuals and families illegally connecting water to their homes. This is usually the hotspot in the evenings where everyone comes to collect their water for drinking, cooking and washing. Maria is a long-time resident and she says life here has never been easy, especially for the mothers who are required to ensure that there is sufficient water at home.
So me plus I go 2-3 kilometers away. Lo long we have straight, na me plus I struggle hard, lo karim lo head. Na me plus I, feeling good straight.
Some years back, 8 Mile was chosen to pilot the National Capital District Settlement Upgrade Program, an urbanization program initiative. However, work has not started. The community here at 8 Mile have formed 7 zones representing the different ethnic groups to assist roll out the water project for Moresby North East. The office has committed 5 million kina for Edaranu to pipe water into the settlement.
People is surviving up, no government service every team. So this is the first vital service we kisim long 8 Mile here, the first block. We got people Hamas long honorable MP Labia Manu.
These groups make up the Umbrella Association, the 8 Mile Association. This is the recognized body that will work with Edaranu to bring in this service.
So the water have now by got management by stepping so long, 8 Mile community. So far, 8 Mile like sound blood zones associations.
However, the project is still in its infant stage and the community continues to struggle.
Apart from the illegal connections, there are 8 other communal taps which serve the 8 Mile community. But as you can see from the picture, the demand exceeds the supply. Michelle Amba, National EMTV News.
Resource owners of the PNG LNG project in Hela are being urged to cooperate with the state team currently in the province to complete the landowner identification process. Executive Chairman of the National Gas Corporation, Alfred Kayabe, said this while participating in the landowners and the state team. Landowners have been querying the financing of the additional 4.22% equity secured during the UBBSA in 2009 in Kokopo. Kayabe told landowners NGC is the mandated entity under sections 176 and 179 of the Oil and Gas Act to manage all landowner benefits, including equity and royalty payments. And now let's take a look at the finance news. The Kina closed unchanged at $0.3565 US in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, our Kina was trading at $0.3490 US, $0.4947 Australian dollars, $0.3053 euro, and 41.36 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee, cocoa, and copra all closed the day higher. Palm oil, crude oil, and copper all closed the day lower. And finally, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 470 points higher, the ASX closed at 105 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 110 points higher as well. We'll bring you more local stories coming up after this break. Stay with us. Good to have you back with National EMTV News. Porabata village in the Karukuhiri district of Central Province received much needed services yesterday. Karukuhiri MP Peter Isoaimo says it's the obligation of the government to deliver these services. However, he stressed that community ownership must maintain these services. The village received community trucks and speedboats, plus funds of over 100,000 kina to maintain schools and other community associations in the village.
The village of Borebada in the Hiri LLG of Kairukuhiri has been left without government assistance for many years. The village has a growing population of 8,000 and sits next to the LNG processing site. In the village, access to water remains a burden for these people and is likely to get worse if the current dry weather continues. The Kairukuhiri MP Peter Isoaimo, through his party leader Patrick Pruitt, last year committed 1 million kina for development projects in the village, and yesterday they fulfilled their commitments. The 1 million kina was put to deliver a more sufficient water project for the village. It was also put to assist villagers in transportation and the maintaining of schools. Other associations like churches and sporting groups were also given a cut of the 1 million kina. MP Isoaimo, when commissioning the projects, said the services given to the people are their property, but he cautioned them to maintain them for future benefits.
Our only word of caution and advice is for the villagers to look after what we will be commissioning for them today. It is their community assets. They need to look after them and sustain them for the long term, and also the maintenance and upkeep of such assets would now be transferred in their hands.
Isoaimo stressed on the benefits of these services and how the community must work together in ensuring all the people in the village have a share in these services.
Anything that is tailored for community service is what they should be implementing for benefit of the whole community and village of Borebada and Kodeka.
He also appealed to the people to prepare themselves if the current dry spell continues till the end of the year. Meanwhile, 5 million kina was put to seal off the Borebada road by the central provincial government. Stanley Ove Jr., National EMTV News.
School leaders in the Usinobundi district have been given the second chance to be educated with life skills. 70 of them graduated recently and are now aiming to work in the district and help deliver services to the people. MTV's Jack Lapalvi Jr. with this report.
Papua New Guinea's formal education system has not changed much and has seen more students drop out of school every year. But for these 70 students, having the opportunity to acquire life skills training has now placed them in the market for job opportunities. Out of the 70 students, some are parents who are now able to obtain certificate in accounting, computing or business management, which is a big step in their life.
Giving trainings, life skills where you can benefit. Just like kind training, me crab nungud na me amas. And this is me like looking must come up.
The 70 was sponsored by the Usinobundi district to attend courses at the Highlands Youth Training Center in Bans, Jiwaka province. Only 2 graduated with diploma in accounting, while the rest received certificates in office management, accounting and computing. Usinobundi MP Anthony Agama says the district wants to see its youths and elites hold jobs, as the district will see new mines and other projects opening up.
You come up man, you come up Mary, you like dream man you come up in. Sense sister, you know can have.
Meanwhile, Brahman High School received a check of 400,000 kina for the building of new dormitories for students. Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
PNG's Defence Force Engineering Battalion has engaged over 600 infrastructure projects since 1975. Yesterday marked 39 years of existence for the Engineering Battalion. At Lazigan Barracks, Defence Engineers marked the day with a parade hosted by their commanding officer.
Yesterday, families and friends of Lace Igam Barracks Engineering Battalion witnessed a parade that marked 39 years of their fathers' and brothers' services. This event has brought to light these men's skills contribution to building some of the country's major infrastructure projects over the years. Following the road construction linking Western Highlands and Madang provinces, Madang Governor Jim Kass today pledged a piece of land at Madang's Daigul area.
The Madang provincial government stands ready to give you a home, the engineering battalion.
That piece of land at Madang's Daigul area will have the engineering battalion camp built on. Now, engineering battalion's John Gira said the construction of 2 more bridges at Western Highlands' Jimmy River and Madang's Ramu River will connect the 2 provinces. Engineers are also doing rehabilitation work on the Highlands Highway. Their biggest project this year is the 310-kilometer Madang-Baya Road.
3 million every year injected to Engineer Battalion Trust account. But after Bougainville crisis, that funding stopped.
The PNG Defence Force Engineering Battalion continues to have funding challenges over 20 years. Colin Barilai, National MTV News, Leh.
Well, National MTV News continues with True Guy Sports. That's coming up after this break. And the Games Organising Committee winds up operations, including the Hunters, a step closer to the Intrust Super Cup Grand Final. Stay with us.
True Guy Sports.
Welcome to True Guy Sports. The Pacific Games Authority and the Games Organising Committee are expected to close over the next 3 months. Minister for Sports Justin Chichenko announced yesterday that his role as the Pacific Games Minister ended yesterday after the athletes' incentives were given to the Olympic Committee.
This was the last outstanding role that I have to play as the Sports Minister for Pacific Games. In respect to otherwise the PGA, Pacific Games Authority, and the Pacific Games Organising Committee are now all winding down.
The Games Organising Committee and the Pacific Games Authority will close before the end of the year.
Pacific Games Authority and the Pacific Games Organising Committee will be obsolete, and everybody's role in there will have finished.
The venues and other assets will be handed over to the Sports Foundation. They will be under the supervision and management of Sports Foundation CEO Peter Tamalili.
And all assets and all other side of things will come back to the PNG Sports Foundation under the control of the CEO, Peter Tamalili, and the board of the PNG Sports Foundation who represent the government.
Elijah Lavette, National MTV Sports.
The SPPNG Hunters are now focused on the finals of the Intrust Super Cup competition after demolishing the Burleigh Bears in their last round match. The Hunters will be on a bye this weekend and will take the field next weekend to continue their run towards the Premiership.
The Hunters have completed round 26 of the Intrust Super Cup, sitting second on the ladder behind the Townsville Blackhawks by just 1 point. The Hunters are now into the finals of the competition and are one of the favourites to take out this year's Intrust Super Cup Premiership. This weekend will see the grand final of the Intercity Cup, where the Agmak Gurias will take on the Simbu Lions. Minister for Sport Justin Chichenko said the Intercity Cup is a great avenue for young players to become a hunter and a kumul.
And Port Moresby Rugby League and the other local clubs throughout the country are the ones that create our hunters, the ones that create and expose our new talents in rugby league. So it's very, very important that they get as much support as possible to ensure that rugby league is going at every level, from the professional right down to the grassroots. And Digicel Cup is one stepping stone of the pathway to become a kumu or to become a hunter.
The Hunters' outstanding performance this season has seen Hunter Wartovo Puara being nominated and in the running to become People's Choice Player of the Year. Dion Kombeng, National MTV Sports.
Well, True Guy Sports continues with rugby and soccer after these short messages. Stay with us.
True Guy Sports.
Good to have you back with Trukai Sports. Regional Tournament Director of World Rugby, Michael Groom, has responded to claims made by Sports Minister Justin Chichenko on the PNG Rugby Football Union being incompetent leading into the 2015 Oceania Rugby Cup. Groom says in a statement he was pleased with the efforts made by the PNG RFU to ensure the tournament was a success.
The government in this regard usually wants to see a more proactive approach to ensuring that these events are organised properly and professionally from day one.
PNG RFU and World Rugby officials have responded to statements made by the Sports Minister Justin Chichenko. Prior to the tournament, Chichenko labelled the PNG RFU management and executives as being incompetent.
There are issues that I have personally with Rugby Union that need to be resolved. Even though Rugby Union is an independent body, just like Rugby League, we can't be continually bailing them out if they come to a problem. We need to resolve the issues within. If it's a management problem, if it's an administration problem, whatever the problem is, the government's here to help resolve those issues so Rugby Union can move forward.
PNG RFU General Manager Frank Genia acknowledged the minister's concerns and admitted that there was a lot more to do for rugby in the country.
Yeah, look, we've definitely faced some challenges in the last few months in putting this tournament together. But look, I'd like to thank Oceania Rugby and World Rugby for working extremely hard with PNG Rugby Union to put this tournament together in a very short amount of time.
Genia also made note of the lack of support from the PNG Sports Foundation in assisting with training and playing venues, despite World Rugby official Wayne Shasta having visited the facilities on 2 occasions with the foundation. Shasta said, unfortunately, no one had foreseen the unavailability of the facilities that had been committed to the tournament. Oceania Rugby Operations Manager and Regional Tournament Director of Rugby, Michael Groom, commended PNG RFU for staging the tournament successfully, given the numerous challenges they were faced with in the weeks leading up to the tournament. Sasha Pesilovo, National EMTV Sports.
PNG RFU General Manager Frank Genia, including Oceania and World Rugby reps, have thanked the PNG government for their support in hosting the 2015 Oceania Rugby Cup. With the support of government agencies and business houses, the tournament was lauded as a tremendous success by World Rugby officials and participating nations. The PNG RFU has plans to bid for other regional rugby tournaments to be hosted in Papua New Guinea. To football, and Samoa and Cook Islands have won both their opening matches of the Oceania qualifiers in Nuku'alofa, Tonga's capital. Both teams now progress to stage 2, with Tonga and American Samoa still hoping to stay in the race. MTV's Jeremy Mogi has this report.
The Cook Islands opened their campaign a little shaky, and at times allowed Tonga more room than they should have had, and could easily have been punished for it. They were fortunate that finishing wasn't as accurate as it should have been, or else the hosts might have nicked a couple of goals of their own. The precision of one player in particular, Taylor Sagabi, proved the difference, as he struck 3 unanswered goals to give his side a decent advantage going into match day 2. As evidenced by the final result, the Cook Islands got their campaign back on track, but they'll need the full 90 minutes of concentration from everyone on the park if they want to successfully upend the favourite Samoa, and it won't be easy. Samoa came out hard and fast in their opener, pressing high up the park and forcing errors from their opponents. It proved an effective game plan against American Samoa, but with most teams having found their flow in this competition, it's only going to get harder to maintain that style of play. 3 different players got on the board for this side: Desmond Faioso, Andrew Mobley, and Faitalia Hamilton Palmer, which shows there is depth in the squad that makes them a threat from anywhere on the pitch. American Samoa may have had few nerves with a large portion of the squad making their international debuts, but once they settled into the match, became a real force. Tonga won't be happy about going down in the history books as the side American Samoa beat 4 years ago to claim their first international victory. Not only is a spot in stage 2 on the line for this side, so is national pride. Jeremy Mogi, National EMTV Sports.
Well, True Guy Sports ends on that note. The weather forecast for the next 24 hours when we come back. Stay tuned.
Guy Sports. True Guy Sports.
Taking a quick look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in southern region, all centers relatively fine. In Momase, brief evening shower is expected in Banimo. In the New Guinea Islands, a shower or two expected in Rabaul and Kokopo. And lastly, in the Islands region, all centers to look forward to fine weather in the morning except Mount Hagen, possible evening showers. Now, before we go, as always, a quick recap of our main headlines again tonight. 2 university students injured after clashing with locals. Also, Governor Naru urges the government to come clean on the state of the country's economy. And St. John's ambulance service ceases due to lack of funds. Well, that's been the news, sports and weather this Wednesday, the 2nd of September 2015. From the news team, I'm Tokana Hasavi Jr. Thanks for your company. You take care and stay happy. Good night.